Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today. Today we're here to talk to you about our new course. It's called LinkedIn Like a Pro. I'm Incontrera, and joining me is Andy Molinsky, and we created this course together. So before we get started officially, let's tell you a little bit about who we are.
So I'll introduce myself first. I don't mean to go right off the bat with a self-promotional note here, but I was chosen as a top voice in LinkedIn in education in 2016. So I guess what that means is that I did a lot of LinkedIn relatively early-ish, because LinkedIn in 2020 is different from LinkedIn in 2015 and 2016. But I've been pretty active in the past several years. By day, I'm a professor of organizational behavior, organizational psychology. I'm the author of two different books, Global Dexterity, which I published in 2013, and Reach, which I published in 2017. And the reason that that's important is that that's really what got me into LinkedIn, to be able to create a community, learn how to use it. Before I published Global Dexterity, I wasn't on any social media, to be perfectly frank with you. So I've learned from scratch. Now I have about 80,000 followers and connections on LinkedIn. I'm super active. So that's a little bit about me. And Marie?
So I'm Marie Incontrera. I make my living as a social media consultant and entrepreneur. I work with a lot of other entrepreneurs, executives, authors, and what have you on maintaining and building their social media presence. And what we're finding is that LinkedIn is really one of the most valuable platforms that you can be on. I'm also an author. I wrote the book 2 years ago, A Social Yearbook Launch, which takes authors through how they can build their platform for their book and for their personal brand and business. I also have built my own brand. So I have 20,000 plus followers and connections on LinkedIn. And I'm also really active there. So you can go and find me and follow me and kind of see that, both Andy and I practice what we preach. So everything that we tell you about in this webinar and in the course, you'll see that we do ourselves.
In fact, I was on LinkedIn right before this webinar, so very specifically. So Marie, do you want to start or?
Yeah, so we all know we need to use LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is one of the most powerful platforms. It can help you build your network and find a job and make professional connections. If you're in business for yourself, it's a really powerful B2B and B2C platform. But one of the things that I know I encounter with my clients and people who are my colleagues, and Andy, I know you used to encounter, is imposter syndrome, right? Like, who am I to be putting out content on LinkedIn? Who am I to be reaching out to people? So if you feel like an imposter, know that you're not alone. And do you know that you need to grow your online network, but don't even know where to begin? That's what this course is for.
And I'll also say that, and I agree with what Marie said, in terms of becoming an imposter, I think one of the biggest antidotes to that, one of the biggest solutions to that on LinkedIn, of course, is to give it a try with some sort of guided expertise and some forcing mechanisms in this course, but also to realize that you can chart your own way and your own path, right? So there are people on LinkedIn who are super self-promotional, and you might think to yourself, oh my gosh, I'd never do that. But the point is, you don't have to actually to be effective. So the power of LinkedIn. We all know the power of LinkedIn. It's where lots of key decision makers spend their time. Influencers, more than 500 million professionals worldwide gather on LinkedIn. It's really become the platform. I have to tell you just personally, and I'll continue here in a second, but just personally, I started out trying out Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I have to say that I've very quickly gravitated professionally towards LinkedIn. I have a presence on Twitter, and I'll tweet every now and then. And Facebook, I used to do a lot, but I find LinkedIn actually incorporating a lot of the elements that you see in other platforms into LinkedIn now. So It's really professionally, it's really, I think, the place to be. And so you can see some of those statistics here. Marie, you want to talk about sort of this conceptual overview?
Yeah, sure. So the two things that we're going to be focusing on in the course are building social proof and building social capital. So what does that mean? On LinkedIn, obviously, the first thing that people see is your profile. So we're going to help you build a profile. And then this is a relatively new feature of LinkedIn. I think this probably only started in 2016, which is sharing meaningful content. So a few years back, LinkedIn became a little bit more like Facebook in that you can share status updates and blogs and content and stuff like that. And it very, very quickly became one of the most valuable parts of the platform. And it's really important in building social proof. These days, employers and people who might want to collaborate with you, rather than asking for a resume, they will very often just ask for your LinkedIn profile. So that's why this is important. In terms of getting endorsements, you can ask for recommendations from your peers and your colleagues. So if you work with somebody and you do a really great job, you can always say, hey, can you give me a recommendation or an endorsement on LinkedIn? So it's a really great place to house your testimonials and build your credibility as a professional. In terms of social capital, connections are social capital, right? Real relationships, building your network, that's all really important when it comes to building your credibility, building your expertise. Even if you're looking for a job, your network is most likely going to provide you with your next job opportunity. Most of the time it comes out of somebody you know, knowing that their employer needs a job or somebody that they know. So keep that in mind when you take the time to build your network. It can take a lot of time, but it's important. So the way that we do that, we engage in conversations on LinkedIn. We grow your network organically with contacts, connections, and advocates. So people who will work with your content and like your content and sort of make it appear really engaged within the algorithm. And the important word here is organic, because we all get those really salesy messages, right? From people who are like, hey, I'm going to help you get 1 million leads, right? We're not going to teach you how to do that. We're going to teach you how to have real conversations on LinkedIn. And all of this, the most important thing is that you are going to increase your perceived value. So when someone goes to your LinkedIn profile, they know you're someone worth talking to and worth connecting with.
And these two things also, I would say, they're mutually reinforcing. So
Right.
As you build your social proof, it'll increase the chances for you to really enhance your social capital, which then feeds back into your social proof. So it's really cyclical in that way, which is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So common mindset challenges when using LinkedIn. So part of what I bring to this course is a background in psychology. And I've written the book Reach, which is a book about stepping outside your comfort zone. And I teach and train, and I have a coaching certification program to help people learn how to help others step outside their comfort zone. So inevitably, I bring that perspective here too. And I think LinkedIn and sort of building your network and even promoting yourself on LinkedIn to some degree is outside many people's comfort zones. These are some of the challenges that you might face. You might feel inauthentic, putting yourself out there, taking a stand, having an opinion, having a perspective. It might not feel authentic to you. Likability challenge. What I mean by that is the idea that when you press send or when you press return, you might worry that other people won't like this version of you, this version that maybe toots their own horn a little bit or whatever it might be, but you worry about the ways that others might perceive you. And that can be an impediment to people with LinkedIn, and it can sometimes even make people avoid doing it in the first place. The competence challenge, that's another challenge I feel people face, psychologically speaking, that they look at someone else and what they've done and they think, oh, I could never match up to that, or I'm not even sure, how do you construct a post? I mean, what do you put in it? Do I include a picture? Do I include a video? Do I include a meme? What's a meme? You can feel pretty incompetent about that. And then the resentment challenge, that's a challenge that I also hear people face, which is the idea, I'm a really good professional. I do really good work. Why should it matter that I can do all this LinkedIn stuff? Why should it matter that I have a profile or can make connections or can comment on people's posts and so on? That shouldn't matter. What should matter is just my qualifications and my ability to do good work. In a way, you're right, but the fact of the matter is that LinkedIn really is important. And actually kind of exciting too. I've developed some great professional contacts and relationships through LinkedIn, and I've learned a lot too. So those are some common mindset challenges.
Yeah, and I just want to say, it might sound funny, like, why are we talking about mindset when it comes to LinkedIn? This is super common. Any client that I work with that's just building their social media platforms, they all have at least one of these 4. It's worth thinking about if you have any of these challenges, if you're just starting out, because you may not even realize that you're thinking this way, right? So if you're resistant to LinkedIn for any reason, it's probably one of these 4 things.
And by the way, I've been there too. And,
Yeah.
to some extent, I'm always there a little bit, but I've worked through it.
Right.
So what's the content going to look like? What's the content of the course? We've been through some of this already, but beating imposter syndrome, or at least grappling with it enough to avoid avoidance. Building a profile people will want to visit, engaging with others, connecting, sharing valuable content, and building that network organically. Not what Marie said about like buying followers or anything like that. It's really about, it's a step-by-step process, really. And we'll show you everything that we have learned in the many, many years that we've been doing this. So Marie, you want to talk about the way the course will be structured?
Sure. So we will have crafted modules. We'll meet via Zoom, and we'll have 3 modules. So the first is you're going to learn how to create, update, and optimize your profile. And then you'll be able to go and do that challenge, right, for a week. And then we'll teach you how to join in conversations and engage people in conversations, including people who you may not already know, right? Maybe they're your colleagues or your friends or what have you. But it's also important to start to think about engaging people you would like to know, people you would value having in your network. And then you'll go off and do that. And then the third week, we'll talk about creating original content. So things like status updates or blog posts or video posts or creating graphics or memes or whatever the case is. So that's a really important part of LinkedIn. And it's a really good signal to your audience and your network what you're all about. This way they can feel like they know you before they actually get to know you.
And the way it's structured is that these are, I guess what we call them biweekly challenges. I'm always confused about what that means. It's basically like week 1, there'll be a Zoom video meeting like we're having now, but a content meeting around creating, updating, and optimizing your portfolio. Week 2 will be an open office hours week. And you can pop in during the office hours, which will be the same exact time as the course. And we'll tell you, the weekly time. You can pop in with any questions that you might have. And then your challenge is between weeks 1 and week 3 to actually do the first task. Week 3 will then be the second challenge, and we'll have a Zoom call where we'll describe our best practices in joining and engaging conversations. You'll have then 2 weeks to practice that, and then on the off week, have a chance to pop into office hours if you'd like, and so on. So that's the way that the flow of the course works, and that's what the Q&A sessions are. Those are sort of the office hours on the off weeks. We're also going to create a private surprise LinkedIn group for us to share ideas, best practices, questions, anything like that. You'll be paired up with an accountability partner. So someone that you can connect with who's also going through the course to share tips, advice, ask questions to, and so on. Anything on this that I missed, Marie?
Yeah, I think that about covers it. What I think we're getting at is that this is not just a course that you go in and you take on your own time, although you can, the modules will be recorded and the office hours will be recorded if you can't make that time. But it's very structured. It's very high touch. You'll be able to come in and ask us questions, which I don't know if we'll always be able to offer, but for this inaugural class, we are offering you'll be able to ask any questions, get answers, and also have a partnership in the group. So if you're posting about something that's super important and you want us to go in and like it and engage with it to get you started, that's part of the value of this course.
And so by the end of the course, these are the outcomes that we're structuring this to feel good about your profile for sure. To develop the confidence and skill, so the inner confidence and also the skill to engage effectively in conversations on LinkedIn, to be more adept at creating your own content. And as Marie mentioned before, there are a lot of different elements of content. Some content is written, some content is video. It could be also visual. There's all sorts of different varieties of content on LinkedIn, and certainly touch on all those. And then the other goal is through the very partnership that we have in the course to hopefully create a network of peers that can help you succeed on LinkedIn, because you'll learn one of the key things about the LinkedIn algorithm in terms of bringing posts to the top of people's feeds is the amount of engagement on the posts. And so if there's a group of people that take this course and feel a sense of camaraderie and connection to the course and to each other, that will only increase everyone's positive outcomes at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So anything else, Marie, on this one?
Yeah, no, I think that about covers it for this. So I think you're getting quite a bit for this course, right? Like this is kind of your startup guide. If you're just starting from scratch with LinkedIn, this course will help you with that. If you already have a profile and you sort of want to take it to the next level, this course will also help you with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. So you want to talk about the dates, the details?
Sure. So the course modules, which are, where you'll get the challenges and everything like that, we're going to have 4 sessions, May 5th, May 19th, June 2nd, and June 16th. So that's once every other week. We're going to be hosting them live via Zoom at noon Eastern time, but of course we'll record them and we'll give you an opportunity, if you can't make it, to send in your questions in advance for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th weeks so that you can get your questions answered via video. In between those two, there will be those course modules, there will be office hours. So those are 3 office hours, May 12th, May 26th, and June 9th. You'll be able to ask any questions. Basically, we're just there for you. It's open. You can ask any questions that you want. The groups that's there may be able to help you, or Andy and I can help you. And all sessions will be recorded, so you can still sign up if you can't make the time. In fact, we encourage that because we know people are on all different time zones, right? So, we'd love to be able to help you as well. And you'll also get a really great group that you can engage with at any time. You'll get the accountability partners, and you'll have these challenges that you can do.
Great. So in terms of the cost of the course, the normal price is $249 US, but we're offering a special, I guess what you call an early bird special. If you sign up before April 23rd for $50 off, and with this code, and you can enroll right now. I don't mean this to be a hard sell. This is like enroll right now, but you can enroll right now if you'd like. But that's the cost of the course, which we tried to price this course in a way that we were intending to hopefully be reasonable for people to really get going on LinkedIn, to either get started or to up their game. And so that was our intention with this. Marie, anything else on this?
Yeah, no, that's great. I am just typing the link again in the chat box so you guys have it. And I see a couple of questions coming in. So
okay, great.
As soon as I'm finished with this, we can start answering some questions. So please do ask your questions either in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we'll be answering them. All right, so the link is in the chat. Again, Incontrera.consulting.teachable.com/courses/LinkedIn-like-a-pro. That's the link to sign up.
And if for some reason you forget about that or miss that, you can find the course sign up on our LinkedIn in the upcoming days. So that would be pretty, yeah, exactly. So Gita asked if each of the sessions is an hour. That's the intention, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Q&A that comes, Renuka says, how much time should one set aside for this? Understanding that, of course, it'll be a variable, but in a sense of initial weekly. So that's a great question. I think that in addition to the hour that you have for the course module, I would suggest probably setting aside maybe 20 minutes a day to check in on LinkedIn, sort of do your homework, think about it. Even if you're not posting every day, especially at the outset, that's about the amount of time I suggest for you to give to LinkedIn, especially in the beginning. And then that time, as you sort of get more skilled and you do more on LinkedIn, that time will decrease over time. Would you agree with that, Andy?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's variable, of course, because it depends on what you're doing. But, I think that certainly for the first 2 challenges, depending on what you decide to tackle for the last challenge, that's sort of in your shoes. I'm sorry, in your control how much time you want to put in. For instance, right. if you decide you want to write an article on LinkedIn and then promote the article, let's say, well, how much you have to figure out how much time it takes you to write an article. Right. so it depends. That third challenge is sort of under your control in terms of how much. But yeah, I'd say that's about right, about 20 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, note that everybody takes different amounts of time to do things like write articles. We both know our mutual friend Dory, right? She can write an article in half an hour or something like that. But somebody else might take. I certainly don't take that short of a time. I probably take an hour or two to write an article, and then some more time to sleep on it and proof it and everything like that. So. The long answer is however much time you have to dedicate to this is, and however much time things like content creation take you.
There's a question, let's see. Cher says, can your course also help those who are transitioning or attempting to without sacrificing their current roles? I know lots are potentially going to be out of work, but don't want to jeopardize their role.
So, Cheryl, a clarifying question there. So, do you mean like if somebody is out of work right now, but wants to keep their current role? Still working, but may need to seek other options. Yeah, and I think that's a great question. So, yes, we can absolutely help with that. There's, I think, a little bit of no two strategies are going to be the same. So that's something to take into an account. And that's definitely something we can talk about in the third week in terms of if you're transitioning or if you know that you might need to seek other options. There are ways to do that on LinkedIn, I think, especially because you have content, because you have other things. There are ways to sort of put the feelers out there without totally saying, yeah, I'm looking for a new job, right? So we can dedicate some time to that, absolutely.
I think also the sort of core idea of social proof and social network are relevant, right? So you're setting yourself up by expanding your network and expanding, increasing and enhancing your social proof. In other words, the extent to which you're, I don't want to say a thought leader necessarily, but someone who's got some interesting things to say, someone who's engaged professionally, someone who has a very, who has an impressive profile and has connections and so on. I think that only helps ultimately, no matter what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's your current job, future job, transitioning,
right?
It's like career insurance to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Any other questions? So Andy, I have a question for you. So what are some common things that come up for you? Like, what do you have people tell you? Like, is it, for instance, somebody starting out, what's the number one question that they ask you?
With LinkedIn, I think someone starting out, I think people who are starting out are afraid to engage, afraid to send a note on LinkedIn. That's another thing we can talk about. Send a note on LinkedIn to ask someone to connect with them or to their contact to comment on anyone's post. It's just pure avoidance. And, just because it's intimidating, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to formulate what they want to say. It feels daunting. Those are the most common sort of comments that I get from people who are just starting out, and then people who want to kind of fine tune their approach. That all differs in terms of what they're trying to achieve.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So we had the question, what's the price again? So it's $249 normally, with the code 50 off through April 23rd, it'll be $199.
US dollars. How about you, Marie? What's your what's the most common challenge that your clients face?
So I hear the number one thing I hear is, "Oh my gosh, I'm behind." Right? LinkedIn has been around, and it's people have been doing this since 2015, or even as early as 2009, right? So I hear a lot of, what do I do? I'm behind, and to that I say, so. I think it was 3 years ago, I started with 800 contacts on LinkedIn. And my team and I, we work on social media all day, and so we started working on my LinkedIn, and I grew that to about 20,000 organically, right? So I was a late adopter, and so it is possible. You don't, even if you feel like you're behind, you have to start somewhere, and it really is possible to create real growth and real traction even today, starting today on LinkedIn.
I'd agree. I mean, I've seen it. Renuka asked, will you also address privacy, et cetera? And then also the different levels available in their utility, like premium. So LinkedIn Premium and LinkedIn. So from what I understand, there's basic and premium, right?
Yeah, and then there's
Is there
also
a
like
third level?
Sales Navigator, and business. There are some higher levels, and those are for people who are looking to do things like you know sell to a lot of people and that sort of thing.
I see. Yeah. I'm familiar with the difference between basic and premium. I'm not as familiar with those higher level options. Murray, perhaps you are, but I'm not sure if that's what Renuka was interested in. And then will you address privacy?
Mhm.
Does the course cover LinkedIn groups? Okay. We can talk about that. Um,
Yep.
uh, Privacy. I'd love to hear more about what you mean, Renuka, in terms of privacy.
hmm Yeah, in terms of, so I'm familiar with the difference between basic and premium, and we can certainly cover that. You probably won't need any of the higher level levels on LinkedIn, unless you're creating a business where you're going to, reach out to, unless you're creating like a B2B business where you want to reach out to executives of Coca-Cola or whatever the case is, people who don't really show their profile to a lot of people, right? So privacy is a setting that we can talk about when we address setting up your profile and what that looks like.
So Renuka said, I meant privacy is related to your point about different folks' motives for connecting. Right. So there are different privacy settings in terms of who can see, like when someone has viewed your profile, how much information do they get about you? Do they get very general information, or do they
Mm-hmm.
see exactly that it was you checking out their profile? And there's some pluses and minuses of that. We could get into that as well. Um, but yeah, in terms of understanding people's motives for connecting, we can talk about that when we talk about engaging and the
Mm-hmm.
choices that we make in terms of building and engaging our network. And I think a lot of that has to do with your goals on LinkedIn too. If you're, what your ultimate goal is. Some people have goals where it makes sense for them to connect very broadly. Frankly, that's one of my, I tend to accept most connections, not all,
Mm-hmm.
but then if someone starts to sell me stuff or starts to do something like that, I'll remove them. So that's how I usually use that. But we could certainly talk more about that. I think both of us are familiar with that. And in terms of LinkedIn groups, we certainly can talk about it in the section where we talk about engagement. I've done quite a bit with LinkedIn groups. The groups function on LinkedIn is completely dependent on the activity and engagement of the people in that group.
Right.
You can tell that
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
quickly when you join a group. And you have to join a group. You have to, well, there's some open groups and there's some groups that you have to kind of apply for. And you'll see very soon, like when the last posts were and how much engagement there is, and you can tell.
Yeah.
And we could talk about that too. It can actually be an effective strategy
Mm-hmm.
if you to share your content in relevant groups and to start to also build a community of people within groups.
Yeah, I would add to that LinkedIn groups can be a really good secondary strategy or tertiary strategy. So I usually, when someone is starting out, I don't recommend that they start LinkedIn groups until they've really got some traction on their profile first.
Yeah.
And then once you've built a little, then you can start going into LinkedIn groups, and that can kind of, if you choose your groups well and everything like that, that can sort of level up your connections and your engagement and everything like that.
Other questions? One of the main goals of the way that we constructed this course is we didn't want to make this course sort of like a data dump, sort of like drinking from the fire hose kind of thing. Instead, we wanted to create both a forcing mechanism, in other words, some challenges and some accountability to undertake those challenges, because oftentimes that's the best antidote to avoidance in the first place, is to actually have some challenges, but also to build in some support in there as well. The supportive norms of a community, in a sense, our supportive nature and so on, an accountability partner and so on. So like a forcing mechanism and accountability, but also sort of the safety of knowing that, you know, you're not alone kind of thing. So that's kind of how we built this course. And it's a mini course. It's not super long, but I think there's a lot, I think you're going to come out on the other end with a really good understanding and some experience that you probably wouldn't have had.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if it's the kind of thing you want to do yourself, the important thing to remember is that the most important thing about LinkedIn is that you're consistent, right? So this course will help you do that. We'll show you what a good content calendar looks like, what a good posting calendar looks like. Because if you post once a month, chances are nobody's going to see it. Just because that's the way the algorithms work. So we'll help you build the consistency. We'll help you build the strategy behind it, so that once the course is finished, you have the habit of going on LinkedIn.
I see a question from Art, which is, what are the metrics you use to evaluate the effectiveness of your LinkedIn marketing, especially since you are both authors?
That's a great question. I'll say that everybody's different. You know, that's the first thing, but LinkedIn will show you views and engagement on every post. There's also a metric for profile views. And keep in mind, you know, even for folks like Andy and me who have a product, you know, we have books, right? So book sales are something we think about, right? Or we have courses or what have you. I know I get a lot of clients that come to me through LinkedIn. Andy, I don't know if that's the case for you, but you know,
I do.
Yeah. But I think the reason that's effective, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason it's effective for me is because on LinkedIn marketing, you know, I focus on creating value for my audience. I don't focus on selling. You know, I don't push out my book and say, buy my book. It's the greatest book ever, you know, like, or here's why you should work with me, right? I focus on creating value. And to me, that's more effective because it's a greater long-term strategy, because then your network will go much, much further than just like, you know, buying a book or, you know, maybe spending some money on a course or whatever the case is. So you always want to focus on the value first. And I recommend building your network for 6 months before you even say, hey, I have this product. So, Andy, I don't know if you want to add to that, but
yeah, I would agree with everything you said. And the other thing I'd add to it would be that, you know, there are different metrics. There's sort of like your short-term immediate metrics of views and engagement and so on that you get on any social platform. But then sort of the downstream metrics are the amount of, you know, individualized messages that people are sending you, asking you to connect, or saying that they really enjoyed your article or they've really liked your stuff on this or that. And so like people will be reaching out to you because of the content that you have created to connect with you. And then that's a conversation starter. So it's not, it doesn't have to ultimately be like always a cold email from you or
right.
you know, note from you, sort of an outbound note. You're getting inbound comments and inquiries. And that to me is a really good metric for effectiveness, but it's not like an immediate metric. It's sort of, you need to build it up over time in order to harvest the results. That's what I would say.
Yeah, oh, totally. And this is sort of a more general network thing, as opposed to just a LinkedIn thing. But, you know, you can know somebody for 5 years and they might be in your network before they ever buy anything from you, before they, you know, hire you for a job or whatever the case is. So, LinkedIn is really one of those, while you can see some short-term effects, it really is a long-term play, right? Because it's like compound interest, right? Like that will compound. The more that people see others engaging with you, the more that people see that you're providing value for others and that sort of thing. Long term, you'll see even more inbound. You'll see even more connections and that sort of thing. Any other questions?
Yeah, anything else? I don't see any other questions. If you do have any other questions, a great way to ask them would be to ask us on LinkedIn.
Yep.
We'll both be there. We'll find your questions. We hope that you will be interested and want to sign up. I think this would be a really fun and impactful course to really kind of jumpstart and kickstart your LinkedIn game.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess we'll end it there. And Marie just included the link as well in the chat. So you can see that there.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for spending some time with us. I hope you join us on our adventure, and we're excited to grow your LinkedIn with you.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.